Hi everyone, it's Henry here, and in this video I'm going to be continuing on with our Black Templars army project, and this time I'm tackling probably the most important character in the army, the Emperor's Champion. So I'm going to take you through all of the conversion work I did on him and the paint job, and we'll have a look at him at the end, how he looks with the rest of the army. So I hope you enjoy. Let's paint. So yeah, this guy, as I say, probably the most important part of the army, and I don't dislike the official model for him, but you know, it's kind of fun to personalise stuff if you have. So I've taken a look at the official sculpt, I've had a look on Lexicanum and a bit of the background, just trying to decide what are the most important elements of him. And I think it's got to be the face, because it's a character model anyway, and the sword. They're probably the two key areas, and maybe that armour being this special sort of armour of, whatever it's called, not armour of contempt, something like that, the special armour they stick him in. So I've been through all my bix boxes, of which I have rather a lot of the Forge World, various Forge World upgrade kits for the Heresy miniatures, as well as some of the characters, and the vast majority of the recent sculpts certainly come with a really lovely unhelmeted head. So I was really tempted to sort of look through them and see what I could find. And then obviously you've got some of these older, more knightly heads like this original Dark Angels upgrade ones you can see here. But sort of looking at it, it felt like that laurel wreath was quite important. So I was kind of looking through the kits, trying to see what I could find, which had that wreath on it. This character I began working on as a traitor Ravenguard one. Actually, I might do him for a future video, but I thought I'd found the one. So the helmeted head here, you can see, I mean, it's perfect, right? Or so I thought. Didn't quite work, which is a shame, but definitely, like, Black Templars fans out there, like, see if you can get hold of this one, see if your mates use the unhelmeted head or something, and you can get that helmeted head off him, because it's really, really cool. Then obviously I had all the sprues from the various other Black Templars that we've built for the project, and I will post a link up to the playlist and all the other videos associated with that. But I was looking through here really just for any little sort of trinkety things that might be able to stick on there. And I've things like these various purity seals. I thought that'd be pretty cool. Just give him a bit of OTT. I kind of like the vibe we've got going with our take on these Templars. So it's been interesting. I think not covering them necessarily in 1,000,001 purity seals. And then it was looking through some other sprues. So I'd used an Emperor's Champion in a conversion for another miniature, but I didn't use the sword. So I had the sword for that. And then I found this really cool shoulder pad on the Jump Pack Captain that I did up and actually did for this army. Which go back and look. But I wanted the body for the character. I needed something. It had to have the robes on, right? That was key about the Black Templar thing. But also I was looking for something with a cool pose. Now I noticed in this this Company Heroes set, they've all got the robes on them, the little tabards. I was like, okay, this would be a cool starting point. So the guy on the left is the one that I was originally thinking of using, but then I noticed the guy on the right here, I really, really like the torso. Like, I love the chest piece. I think it looks really excellent. I was like, I wonder if I can take the front torso of this and stick it on those. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. So we were stuck using the entirety of the torso on the guy on the left. Not a huge issue. It just meant I was going to have to shave off the chest detail, like I've done on a lot of the others. Let's say no big deal, and still a really cool pose. It's got a little very sort of subtle tactical rock as well, which is always pleasing. So I'd sort of gathered roughly the parts I was going to use. So I say in my head, I knew what the sort of key features were going to be. I didn't really know what the pose was going to be. And now this was probably the most enjoyable part of the hobby, right? Kitbashing, bit of Lego, stick it all together, see what we can come up with. Unfortunately, I don't have my old faithful hobby knife anymore. I lent it to someone on a class a couple of weeks back, and it never came back. I'm not saying that they nicked it or anything, I'm not trying to, but like it just didn't come home with me. And I've used that knife for like 10 plus years. It was the old Games Workshop one with a black handle, sort of triangular shaped. And I've been so used to using it that it's really thrown me not being able to. So I've got this Swan Morton blade I've been using. I've got this new GW one, which on the whole I think is pretty garbage, but I do really like the way the bit extends over the blade. So you can really choke up on the blade for when you're doing things like I'm showing here. That I thought was a really neat design aspect, because I know certainly when I use these sharp blades, I will often get sort of small cuts on my thumbs from the back of the blade, the spine of the blade, because it's a very sharp sort of 90-degree finish on the back of the blade. But it's just way too short. So I'm really after suggestions, guys. If you've got a hobby knife that you love, please let me know down in the comments. But let me know why you like it, and I'll go and check them out, because I miss it terribly. So yeah, like I said, wasn't sure on the posing. So it's like, okay, the body's like this. How am I going to have the arm with the sword in? And I found this sword of Helbrecht's. I thought, okay, that's pretty cool. He could be stood there with his on the rock and pointing the sword straight down. And I was like, okay, that could work. So I thought I'll nip the blade off the Emperor's Champion here, and I'll just add it to the Helbrecht's. The hilt of his sword should look pretty good. And one of the reasons I wanted to do that was I liked how obviously the hand had the chains on. Now, as I understand it, the chains are something of an affectation. They're sort of representative. That they're committing these vows. They're not going to put their weapon down till they're dead and all the rest of it. But also that you don't have to have chains on every single. They're not chaining literally everything they have to themselves. So I liked that level of freedom. But also, I like the aesthetic of the chains. I think it's pretty cool. The way it's sort of manacled to their hands. So I thought, okay, cool. We'll take advantage of that. I've got the whole arm piece. I'll pop the blade in here. A little bit of trimming, a little bit of plastic glue, smoosh it together. Nothing super complicated. But often, with plastic, as long as you use that plastic glue, you're laughing. To put it all together, put it on, and as you can see, it's enormous. It doesn't work at all, which was bit of a shame. So now I basically went through all the kits I had and snipped off all the arms that I had left, and thought it was time here to have a play around and see what sort of posing we could come up with. I don't know about you, but for me, like the kit bashing, I very rarely go in with a solid idea of what I want. I just sort of collect the bits that I like, have a vague sort of idea in my head of the aesthetic, and then sort of let the model guide it, as we go. And unfortunately, it wasn't going brilliantly. I just wasn't able to get these arms with a sort of pose that I liked, that I thought was cool. Then I saw on this Grimaldus sprue that I had, his arm, I was like, okay, he's holding this one up. This Crozius, that could look pretty cool on there, but just goofy, way too static. Kind of got that vibe some of the Blade Guard models have got. I feel they feel much too static for what should be a very dynamic thing. So yeah, got pretty annoyed. Thought, time for a cup of tea, have a think about it, come back, fresh eyes, we'll be okay. And I just wanted to say a quick thank you to those of you that support us over on Patreon. Over there, you tend to get another video each week, often by Andy, and additional podcasts and all the rest of it. But it's the support we get over there that allows us to do the YouTube channel, allows us to be full-time on Cult of Pain, and to do all these other projects, such as our Kickstarter that we got going on at the moment, Deagard. So this is for a large scale of 54mm scale range of elves. I'll link up to a video all about that, but if you're interested, go check it out. It's wicked minis, help support us. We love doing what we do. And Andy's just done a huge 2-part series on this character Steora that he's painted up, including the cloak and the incredible NMM sort of armor that he's done on the guy. Just think, he's absolutely smashed it. But yeah, guys, the support over there means an awful lot to us, and we're trying to do as much as we can with it. And if for any reason you can't support us over on Patreon, then your likes, your subscribes, your comments, your shares over here on YouTube make a huge difference to little channels like ours. We really do appreciate all of those as well. So after my brew, I'm feeling okay again. I was like, okay, stop trying to work with this right arm. It's clearly not going to come off how you want it to. So I glued on the right arm from the actual kit, which I think is pretty cool, actually, having the bionic arm. And then I found this other sword, and this was off the captain, whoever he is. I think he's a captain that's in that company Heroes box. Now, obviously, I had used the Emperor's Champion sword. Thankfully, I had a second Emperor's Champion kit, as you noticed. I'm well aware that the costs are potentially mounting up on this conversion. But actually, it ended up looking beautiful. Popped it in there. I love the lines we've got. I've decided to go for this bare head because I think it just looks absolutely awesome. Kind of this sort of, imagine him standing up on a sort of rocky promontory and, laying down the challenge and leading the army. So now it was time to just sort of finesse the model, just check everything made sense. And I noticed there was this area on his hip where he had other sort of doodads from the original kit, but I thought this would be a brilliant place to put the helmet. And because the Emperor's Champion helmet is still, I think, quite iconic. I know now we have a lot more of these knightly looking helmets, but certainly when he first came out, we'd never really seen that type of helmet on a Marine before. It was, it was absolutely amazing. So I liked popping that in here. So I've just taken him off the main kit. As you see there, I've drilled out the helmet, so it makes sense. And now it's just a case of sort of placing it roughly in where that area would go. And here he is. I think quite an involved set of parts in the end. But I'm really, really happy with how the pose has come out. I think he looks suitably heroic. I think he reads as the Emperor's Champion, which was important. I think I've hit the important parts of him. He's not just another Black Templar. I'll be honest with you, I think he's one of the coolest Marine characters I've kitbashed in many years. I haven't done a ton, to be fair, in the last few years, but certainly, I wouldn't change anything about this model right now. I think he's come out really, really nicely. And to be honest with you, yes, he looks like an awesome Emperor's Champion, but I also think he looks just like an awesome sort of Teutonic Knight style Space Marine. So you could use him for, I don't know, Howling Griffins or Imperial Fists, Crimson Fists, the variety of Templars that are available, and whatever other new chapters there are now with all the Primaris stuff in the storyline. But yeah, really, really happy with how it's come out. Oh, I just noticed I've done a spelling mistake on Ultramarines there. But anyway, so yeah, hopefully if you want to have a go at him, you guys now know the parts that I've used and can sort of have a go, and maybe that inspire you to having a whirl, having your own go at your own Emperor's Champion mini. But now let's get on and paint him. For the majority of the model, I'm going to paint him exactly the same as I have done all the rest of the Black Templars, because end of the day, he looks very similar to all the rest of them. Again, I've linked up the playlist. There's multiple videos on how I've developed the scheme, and then there's also the what's it called? Not the Sword Brethren Squad, the Crusader Squad video, which literally does the whole process start to finish. So I'm not going to worry about repeating myself here and filling sort of all of that in on this one. But what I actually wanted to do was have a bit of a chat about this project. So we started it a year ago with the intentions of it being a sort of collaborative project between Andy and myself, and us building this great big army and this, that and the other. And for one reason and another, it hasn't ended up quite how we'd pictured it. We've kept chipping away at it. We've enjoyed doing it, but it's perhaps not been the project we wanted. And as I'm coming towards the end of the year, I'm looking at my personal hobby sort of stash as well, and just thinking, I want to be in a place in 2025 in the new year where I can be excited about starting, new things, or if I'm continuing projects from this year, it's because I really want to. So I'm sort of looking at projects and thinking, right, where am I sort of stagnating or stalling possibly? And when it's time to start making the call on, do you ditch things, or, do you knuckle down and work through? Or do you simply change, your considerations, change your goals for that project? And I think that's where the sort of Black Templars has got to. We've got a nice little collection. It's really quite thematic, and it sort of feels like the Emperor's Champion is a nice sort of closing point to it. I'd much rather the whole project ends on a real high. And I've loved doing this mini. You've seen the outcome, obviously, because he's in the thumbnail. I've loved him. And actually, the whole project itself, I think I'll do a separate video, to be honest, on the project, and we'll look at the army as a whole, and talk about the project as a whole a bit. But it's been really nice to finish it, sort of on a positive take. You'll notice there on his tabard, the crosses at the bottom, I didn't bother freehanding those. I just used some decals. I did in fact paint over them in the end, but just so I could do a sort of bit of highlighting on them. So they were kind of like a template, I guess. But yeah, initially I used those as a transfer. I am going to go through in normal time, by the way, how I've done the sword and how I've done the face. I'm just sort of speeding through a sort of highlights, as it were, of getting him painted up here while I had a little chat about the project itself. But I hope you guys have been able to enjoy it anyway. But yeah, let's move on to those specific parts to him. So first up, we've got the sword. You see here I've pinned the sword. I've done that because it was a very, very tiny join where it joins the hilt on the main model, so it's easier, but also it's just a bit easier to paint it as well like this on its own cork. So I thought about doing a sort of power weapon effect, but actually I think the aesthetic we've got going with the rest of the army, I think a plain metal actually would look more fitting for it, and it's my personal taste normally when I'm painting stuff up. So to begin with, I wanted a nice, bright but fairly neutral silver, and there's a colour called Duraluminium by Metal Colour Series, which is really lovely. It's lovely with the airbrush and it's lovely with the paintbrush. I thought let's just base coat it in that. Gives us a nice sort of neutral place to play from. And then I wanted to add a little bit of shading. So for here, I've simply mixed in Black Legion contrast paint. It's kind of like a black ink. It's very, very thin. It's a very powerful colour. You don't need much of it. And because it's so thin, it's actually very nice to get a smooth finish with on the miniature, because you don't have to dilute it further down so it breaks up and all the rest of it. And here I'm going to start painting in the shadows. Now, I didn't want to do tons and tons of reflections up and down the blade. So for the underside, as it were, at that cutting edge, I've decided to more or less completely put into shadow. And then the top edge, I've just added one, maybe 1.5 sort of areas of that reflection on this top blade. And by that, I mean we're going to fade from that middle silver we put on there down into this dark one and then up into a nice bright finish. I've left in all the footage of this to give you an idea of what it's like working towards it. Obviously, this part is now sped up, but I'm just working around the model. And by the time I've finished the last section that I'm doing with this mixture, the first part is dried, so I can go in and reapply the paint and just build it up in those nice thin layers so we get nice smooth blends on the model, but also we don't get any real build-up of paint on there, so we just kept a nice sort of smooth finish to the miniature itself. And each time that I'm going back and repeating the process, I'm making it slightly more intense towards the centre of that area of shadow. And you'll notice my brushstroke, I'm always ending it in the centre of that area, so that's where I'm depositing the most of the paint. Which again is going to intensify it and make that middle bit a little bit darker. But also what that does is happily create that transition. We've got a video, real old video of ours actually, but it's very popular one, talking about power swords. And it's exactly the same effect, but it goes into a lot more detail, and we do it with a flat colour on that one. But I like proper metallics. It's just, yeah. You could absolutely do this with colour as well. You could mix a colour in rather than just the black. But I just felt like that quite neutral look, or very neutral look really to this was cool. Now here I'm just using contrast paint to get the words down the middle. And because contrast paint has that medium in it, which extends the drying time slightly on it, you can sort of use it a little bit like oil paint. So here I've just washed it in and then just wiped up the excess with a Q-tip, being very, very gentle, but you're not going to ruin your paint or anything like that. And it's just a bit easier than trying to pin wash in all of those things. And again, this is army painting, right? This is almost a one-session paint job on what is the prime character for the army, which from an army painting point of view, I think is absolutely cracking, from getting him on the table, getting it looking good. And again, we'd set all those foundations with all the earlier work we'd done. Now I've taken the brightest silver I own, so this is an old chrome by Vallejo Model Air. You'll probably still get it in the new edition, I don't know, new generation. But it's just the brightest silver that I have, that's why I'm using it. And here I've just picked a couple of areas of highlights. So the tip of the sword you can see there, and then the blade and this secondary sort of bevel area we've got just to pick out with that super bright silver. And that nice bright silver next to the darker areas just brings that lovely little bit of contrast and interest to what is a very important part of this miniature. And then running down the edge there, you've just got to be sort of careful really with your edge highlight. And the other focus area or area we want to draw people's attention to, of course, is the face, particularly in this case where I've chosen to have him unhelmeted. So first up, I've primed the head black, and I'm going to give it a really strong pre-shade using Tamiya flat white. So I use XF2 here, F being the flats at XF2, and because we're using Tamiya acrylics, we need to use Tamiya thinner, because it's a little bit different to our other water-based acrylics. I have thinned this about 3 to 4 drops of thinner to paint. I'm spraying at about 25 psi, and I'm using a 0.4mm needle and nozzle. Now you will need to adjust your psi and adjust your dilution to the situation that you are spraying in. But what I want to do here is be able to spray very, very see-through translucent layers, build that white up, so we go black through grey through to white. Just gives us areas of highlight and areas of shadow. I'll just spray top down, as you can see. Now I'm going to keep this super, super simple. I want him to be a pale white dude. I think it will look really good against the armour. I've got another unhelmeted figure in the army which has a darker skin tone, so I think this will look nice next to that as well. And also, again, it's army painting. I'm not trying to push myself particularly with any at all. In fact, with this, all the work really on this miniature was done in the conversion stage, and the painting, we've practiced all of that before on all the rest of our miniatures in the army. So I've taken Cadian Flesh tone, sprayed that all over. Again, a dilute mix, probably 3 drops of normal airbrush thinner. I think I use Vallejo for this, but you can use whatever life colour, Vallejo, whoever, whatever the GW one is. Sprayed that over, so not too thick so that it obliterates that pre-shade that we've put on. So thin layers are going on, we build them up, we can still see the areas of light and shadow. Now I'm going to go in and pump that shadow colour up a little bit. For this I'm using Questor Flesh. This I've thinned a lot more, probably 4 to 5 drops of thinner to paint, so this looks like a typical wash, really, a GW acrylic wash. And we're just going to keep building those layers up. This time we'll spray from beneath. You can see on my thumb there sort of how thin that mix is. So the Cadian was all over, and now the Night Quest, or the shadow colour, we're spraying from below. So literally the opposite direction of when we did that pre-shade. And hopefully you can already see adding some lovely tones into the shadow. And then I wanted a brighter one, so I've got basic skin tone here. It's just a really light pink sort of colour. This time I'm going to go top down, but not all over, just really focusing on the front, top and front of the forehead, and then just catching areas like the bridge of the nose, underneath the top of the cheekbones, the top of the chin where it juts out, just a few areas like that. And that's it. I just want to do it with the airbrush nice and quick. And now all I have to go in and do is the eyes and the mouth. I'm not going to film that because it never works. Do the eyes however you like, and then black out the other details. You can see here what a huge difference just blacking the details out makes. It can look a bit of a mess initially, but as soon as you start to frame it with the other bits of the paint job, that work we've done on the skin, I think, just jumps straight out. So huge sort of bang for your buck, effort versus reward, I think, there with this head. And there he is completed. So everything else on him is exactly the same as I've done in all the other Black Templars videos. So if you want to go take a look at those, I will pop the links up in the corner to it. I couldn't be happier. I genuinely feel like a project that's been up and down has finished really strongly. It's not necessarily how I envisaged the project going, but I'm very pleased with where we've reached as an end point. I will do a short video on the whole army itself, because I think, to be honest with you, looking at the subscriber numbers and things like that, we're not a million miles off 100k subs at the minute. So I reckon if we can do 100k by the end of the year, why don't we give the army away, and we'll do some other giveaways and bits and bobs as well. But I'd like to take some nice photos of the army, pop it on a gaming board, see it in context, because I think that's really, really important with a project like this, is understanding the context of why we've chosen to do the paint that we've chosen to do on them. And honestly, just looking at them aside in my hobby room, I think they look awesome. Yeah, it's a shame I don't play 40k at the minute, because it might be a right giggle to have a go with these guys. I hope you have enjoyed it as well, particularly this video. I really enjoyed doing a bit more of the conversion and kit bashing work. Did that recently on a Kill Team video I'll link up that people seem to really enjoy, and I thoroughly enjoyed doing. And this is something I'd like to bring to a lot more of our videos sort of going forwards. So if there are certain things you'd like me to cover when it comes to sort of kit bashing and conversion, tools, techniques, reasoning behind things as well, I will really try to work that in and to be as clear as possible with it all as well. So if you've got any questions about anything I've done in the video, please pop them down in the comments and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you ever so much for all of your support. Take care, and I'll see you next time. If you've liked any of the models in this video and you fancy having an army of them yourself, but perhaps you don't have the time or wherewithal to get it done, consider dropping us an email at commissions@cultofpaint.com, and maybe Ben can sort you out.